I don't know if they've lost control isn't a great quote when they're talking about the financial system of the country. Yowza. So the budget office is saying, actually, everything is 16% more than we thought. So things are not looking good as far as the finances go in the country. Who would have guessed it? And apparently there are a whole bunch of different disciplines for Rhodes scholarships, but I still don't think that monetary, I'm going to check right now. I didn't check before the video. Hold on. Yes, there are prize-winning economists who have had Rhodes scholarships. So it's access to Oxford University as a Rhodes scholarship. So I was making a bad joke. Apologies. Okay, moving on. Chrystia Freeland, who is not very, I don't think that she should be our finance minister because I don't think that she has experience as an economist, and I don't think that she is qualified for the position that she holds. So Anne says, quote, the cost of servicing the national debt has gone up to $46.5 billion, that's billion with a B, this year from $35 billion in the 22-23 fiscal year, and it's projected to rise to $52.4 billion next year. So all of that borrowing we did when interest rates were low and it was irresponsible if we didn't do that borrowing, it's coming back to bite us in the butt now with increased prices, and that's being announced on the eve of the budget. Well, not exactly, but budget's a month away and it's already inflated by 16%. Do you think it's going to go more? Over or under 20%? While she throws tens of billions at so-called green energy, Robert Fife says, can Chrystia Freeland write a liberal budget that announces nothing? They've tried to do that for years. They've tried to announce we're going to be fiscally responsible this year, and every single year they don't. They don't actually follow through with that promise. Holly Doan says Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, current deficit will be 16% higher than forecast, says Budget Office. And here's Holly Doan again. This is Blacklock's reporter. Budget Office confirms Chrystia Freeland missed the deficit target by 16%, with billions and billions more in overspending. Quote, I don't know if they've lost control. I don't know who's being quoted there. So it's interesting. Maybe it's quoting the podcast, but losing control of the country's finances in Canada, I think happened years ago. I mean, in the United States, they were a more attractive target because they had so much money and a bigger population, so you could hide the theft. But they're not even trying to hide the theft anymore. They're just blatantly stealing from us. It's quite something, and it's not very good to participate in. It's not very good because we're paying taxes to send those taxes to foreign countries or to spend on illegals or shelters or drag queens in libraries. Meanwhile, the potholes get ignored and housing accelerators get announced, but no houses actually get built. And I'll show you that too. So it's very, very frustrating to live in a system like this. It seems like it's meant to be demoralizing, right? And they're not being responsible with money. And that is illustrated by the issues our economy has gone through since COVID and since the shutting down of the economy to protect against a virus, which didn't work, the printing of money and handing it out to a whole bunch of people, which caused inflation, the carbon tax, which causes inflation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these missteps have accumulated to create a cost of living crisis. The immigration situation has had a supply and demand crisis and a housing cost crisis, which is contributing to the cost of living crisis. And I mean, we're in a complete and utter mess because of the people who are supposed to be in charge have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're in a role that they shouldn't be in. Holly Doan is reporting Tiff Macklem giving that 1,000-yard stare. Interest rates are high enough, says shell-shocked looking Tiff Macklem, Bank of Canada governor. They are, because a whole bunch of people, I told you yesterday, the mortgage delinquency rates, which is people who are late or not paying their mortgage, is exploding. 135% in Ontario, 62% in BC, 52% nationwide. That's not a good indicator. If that's happening, something's gone terribly, terribly wrong. And I mean, terribly wrong if you like the country that's happening to, right? If you hate that country, then, maybe that's the plan, comrade. Randy Hillier is pointing out this bank collapse, and I think this is American, but these things matter. And these bank collapses happened last year, and then there was a pause, and everybody said, oh, they solved that problem. Cool. And they carried on. Everybody carried on like everything was cool. And fractal something banking continued at pace, right? And that fractal reserve, whatever it is, that kind of banking understands that the banks aren't liquid, understands that that's built into the whole thing. Oh yeah, well, we don't have the money. That's crazy. We just have these little ones and zeros on a piece of paper here. Yeah, that's a representation of your money. We don't have that here. You'll have to put in a request, and then they can maybe sell enough assets to get the money in liquid assets, and that's supposed to be okay. But fundamentally, it used to be if you didn't have the money, if you didn't have liquidity, then your bank failed, right? And so now banks are failing even with this fractal reserve. I think it's fractal reserve banking. They're failing anyway. And here's Watcher Guru says, just in New York Community Bank stock trading halted after crashing 42% today. Wow, right? That's not good. 42% crash. Yowza. So are we watching more problems with the banks? Are we watching the collapses being contained before they can fully collapse, et cetera, et cetera? Because, I mean, the trading was halted at 42%. And it was only $3, like $3.20 to $1.86, right? So, I mean, that's bad, but you can bounce back from that. So there are other factors. There are all sorts of other factors. But it seems very, very dicey the way we're running money these days. And there are other alternatives that people seem to be liking a lot more. Bitcoin is one of them. Holding just bars of gold, like the Scrooge McDuck money bin. That sounds like a good idea, right? Gold and silver, sure. No, I don't want any on paper. I want the actual gold and silver. Put it in this bin here. Christina says, well, the third set of information from the Kojo Institute, Freedom of Information, was just dropped in my inbox. Freedom of Information request was made to Waterloo Catholic District School Board, Waterloo Regional District School Board, and the City of Waterloo in August of 23. And I'll let you in on one of the many commonalities between these three Freedom of Information requests. They redact the money every single time. So wild, right? The amount of money every single time. Our inquiry's fundamental mission is to unveil the truth behind the allocation of public funds, right? Budget, public funds, all that. Yet this vital information essential to achieving the transparency has been deliberately concealed from us. I ask how this could even be legal. I mean, we see unlawful legislation much too often, but honestly, how can it be legal for government agents to withhold from the people the precise amount of money they choose to expend, especially when that money belongs to the very citizens they are to be serving? Is this theft? Are we left with no option but to consider this a case of misappropriation? If we are denied the right to know where our money is going, it implies that our funds have been wrongfully taken, no? I will do my best to release these documents with timelines within the upcoming weeks. So I find all of that interesting, and it's not just a federal government problem is what I'm trying to illustrate here. It's at every level, even down to the level of school boards, right? And municipalities, trying to find out exactly how much money was spent on exactly what. Very difficult. They don't want to tell you, right? And even though it's taxpayer funded. And I get caught up in this all the time because I feel like if you're taxpayer funded, and I ask you a question like, how much did this cost? Then there's an obligation for me to be able to find that answer. You know what I'm saying? Like if I go to the school board and wonder, how much did we spend on busing last year? Whatever. I should be able to find that information. If I want to know how much each school spent on trips, right? I should be able to find that information. And like, that should be big data, right? And having gatekeepers like public servants who are ideologically aligned with people who don't have Canada's best interest at heart, that's not great. That is a very, very big flaw in our system, I think. Dan McTeague says, how is Canada liable for China's unlawful incarceration? This is batshit crazy. Oh, I haven't heard that in a while. Batshit crazy is a nice term. Robert Fife says, Michael Spavor reaches multi-million-dollar settlement with Ottawa for Chinese imprisonment. So there you go. Yay, Michael Spavor. Like, I think the implication is that Michael Korvig had Michael Spavor, and Michael Korvig was a spy, and Spavor was an unwitting spy, and Spavor was upset, and so the Canadian government's trying to make him whole. I wonder if Korvig is going to get any money. We'll see. I'm not sure. But that kind of stuff is pretty wild, and I wonder how their Chinese girlfriends are doing. I'm sure they're very nice. Andy Lee. Let's talk about ArriveScam. Andy Lee is highlighting this exchange. This is the Liberals are continually trying to claim victimhood. They're always trying to be the victim. And if you say a truth, like that man over there in a skirt is not a woman, then a liberal is going to go, oh, like have you ever watched, my cousin likes European soccer. And so he often says, have you ever watched like the French play soccer, right? It's like watching the French play soccer with a big dive. But I don't really have any vested interest in like making fun of anybody in particular. So it's like watching your least favorite country play soccer. They dive a lot. And so all of these liberals take huge dives and nobody's even close to them. Nobody's touched them. And they're leaning over like, oh, my leg's cramping. I can't play on. It's wild. It's incredible to watch. Here is an exchange with Garnet Genius and Ilda. What's her name? Can't remember her name. Hold on. It's right here. It was even the wrong video clip, so I'm glad I paused it. It's Urka Khalid. That's her name. And here she is claiming that Garnet Genius is committing violence against her by using the term ArriveScam. No word of lie. Here it is. Oh my gosh, my leg, the cramp.
Comments of my liberal
point of order.
Lack of trust in public institutions, as if public institutions can be trust in public institutions can be disconnected from an evaluation of their conduct. I think public institutions have to earn trust. Now, the ArriveScam scandal is an earth-shattering scandal. Massive.
Just 1 second,
Point of
Mr.
order,
January.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Khalid, your point of order is?
When conservative colleagues call it an ArriveScam instead of an ArriveCam app,
Ms. Khalid, that is
impacting the public trust. That is the crux of what I was trying to get at.
Ms. Khalid, that is not a point of order. That is a term we're hearing both in this committee room, but also throughout Parliament Hill. Mr. Jennings, you have the floor. 4 minutes and 40 seconds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, trigger warning, my comments will use the word ArriveScam. ArriveScam is impacting public trust because it's an earth-shattering scandal. Massive cost overruns, rigged processes, double-dipping, disappearing records, over 10,000 Canadians incorrectly sent into quarantine, deleted emails, senior public servants accusing each other of perjury, multiple points of conduct that are likely criminal. Yes, this is impacting public trust. The public will only trust institutions when and to the extent that those institutions actually earn their trust.
I would agree, right? I would agree. I think that's fair points all across the board. Andy Lee, again, this is Garnet Genius, and conservative Garnet Genius asks if Dalian contractor David Yeo is allowed to work as a federal employee in a department that his company receives contracts for. Rosh Hupe, the Comptroller General, says it's not disallowed, but it raises flags. Genius, it was on his LinkedIn. It raises flags. Flags like, we should hire and work with this guy. We've already hired him. Here's the revelation, or the what came out of that committee. Conservative motion passes banning double dipping government employees from working as external contractors. So if that's going on, it is now banned, according to Garnet Genius. I'm sure it has to go through a process, like it may have been approved by the committee, but it probably has to go through a process. But here we go. Here's Garnet Genius updating us on that.
Breaking news here at the Public Accounts Committee. Committee just wrapped up and we passed a big motion, a motion that is going to end the practice of double dipping by government contractors. Here's what we found out. David Yao, one of the ArriveScam contractors, his company, two-person company again, got $7.9 million as part of the ArriveScam contract. For what work, honestly, we don't know. But at the same time, he was a government employee. So he's a government employee collecting his salary as a government employee, and his company's collecting $7.9 million as an external contractor, double dipping from taxpayers as both a government employee and an external contractor. This is outrageous. This shouldn't be allowed to happen. We asked government officials today at the Public Accounts Committee, is this practice against the rules? And they said very clearly there's nothing in the rules that disallows this practice of simultaneously being a government employee and a contractor. So I put forward a motion that passed and is going to the House of Commons for a debate and a vote. This motion would disallow this practice of double dipping from taxpayers. We put forward this motion. Incredibly, the Liberals voted against it. Liberals voted against my motion to end.
I'm shocked. I'm not that shocked. I mean, look at the behavior. Look at what they've been up to for everything. Government.exe is corrupt, says the Liberal government has no idea how many employees it has who are also receiving contracts from the same government to do work. So not only is the government one of the largest employers, they're also outsourcing work to their own employees. Since Trudeau took office, he spent over $21 billion on outsourcing alone. The level of corruption is off the charts. How much money do you think this government has robbed from Canadians? It does appear to be just that open and shut. Like this is, if there was a safe with $21 billion, Justin Trudeau took it and handed it out to his contractors for outsourcing. But it seems like it's a whole bunch of liberal cronies and liberal crony like shadow companies and all sorts of false places to stuff money, $21 billion of it, right? It seems absolutely crazy. Here's what happens when you get caught out, I guess. Andy Lee, again, reporting. She says, if you guessed the registered Canadian office of GC Strategies partner level access, who we paid $500,000 to for regulatory compliance checks on ArriveScam and wire transfers to Silicon Valley Bank, would be deserted. You're right. We found the Swiss consulate, though. So there you go. There's no GC Strategies at their office locations. It's all empty. The offices are cleaned out. Weird, don't you think? I mean, isn't this an above board company? Globe Politics. Let's move on to censorship. There's a bunch of really big stories today. Let's move on to censorship. Globe Politics says comparing people to vermin or excrement could prompt hate speech probe under the online harms bill. Interesting. So if you say that weasel, right? That sneaky weasel, or that snake, right? If you can't do that. I think, I call my kids a snake all the time. I say, like, don't be a snake. Like, you're being a snake and you know it. And it's so funny because they know exactly what I'm talking about. And sometimes you can do it playfully, like, but if I'm being serious, they darn well know it. I said, what about potato faced? Asking for a friend, right? Somebody said, whatever could you mean? This is hilarious, and I'm probably going to use it for the title. So there you go. It's not vermin, right? If it was Justin as a snake, I'm going to jail, right? For life. That's it. That is it, Canada. That's it. This is the crime of crimes, okay? It's incredible we're going to talk about crime later, but that's what they want. They want the ability to just jail somebody for making fun of Justin Trudeau by calling him potato-faced, right? How dare you? That's hate-filled. Detestation. I mean, maybe. Do I feel detestation for Justin Trudeau? Deep thoughts. Mark Patron Show is responding to Globe Politics, comparing people to vermin, so on, the one we just read. He says, while the regime unleashes riot horses on peaceful protesters, freezes bank accounts, declares martial law, and jails critics, they claim to want to protect the feelings of Canadians from online discourse that might be hurtful. Right? How dare you call someone a snake? You're going to jail for a long time, buddy. How dare you? Holly Doan says cabinet proposes to federalize bylaw enforcement in case of national emergency. So if there's a national emergency and there's a bylaw that says, you can't go 15 minutes from your house, then they're going to have federal officers on the street, probably with blue helmets, right? Lucky us. Follows claims emergency powers were justified against the Freedom Convoy due to the shortage of tow trucks. The action against the Freedom Convoy was never justified. What they did to the Freedom Convoy was absolutely criminal. 100%. I don't think there's any way around it. Polyev says online harms should be punished with jail, not pushed off to the new bureaucracy. BC Bigot says this bill will get passed either way because Trudeau and Polyev have the same boss. The outcomes will be the same. I don't think that's true. I think that's misreading what's being said here. And I could be wrong. I could be incorrect about this. I haven't heard Polyev's comments on this, but reading what this is about, I read this article, reading what this is about, Polyev is making the case that we have a criminal code. The criminal code applies online. You can't make statements that are aggressive, harmful, blah, 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 online. If you do something that would be illegal in person online, then that's illegal most of the time, right? And so if you're swearing at somebody, or if you're calling somebody a traitor or a communist, or, I do these things, or things like that, like, I don't know that that's something that would translate to in-person discord. But if I was in the middle of a debate with the person, the public figure that I'm calling a communist or a traitor, I would say these things. I would engage because I want an answer. I'm not engaging to casually call them names. I'm engaging because I think that what they're doing is so outside of the norm, and they should be held accountable by the public because they should be informed that the public know. But if I started saying, like, I'm going to harm you in some way, I would expect and not be surprised if police showed up at my house or something to that effect and said, you can't threaten to harm this person. Okay, fair enough. Because we have laws against that. And I think that that applies, and I think that that's not unreasonable, right? I think that there's a reasonable expectation of decorum when you're interacting with people online. And Twitter, it's maybe a little less than your average every day you're at a baseball game, but Twitter has a different purpose than you're at a baseball game. Because if you're at a baseball game, I'm not going to go up to like Doug Ford at a baseball game and like ream him out, because I don't think it's the right time for it. But in a debate, probably, right? And there are people who would go and ream out Doug Ford at a baseball game, and because they'd think, well, you know, he's coming into my private life by imposing these regulations on my private life, on my house, on my car, on my kids, whatever it is. So I have a right to impose on his private life. Okay, fair enough. There's an argument that could be made there. I just don't think that I would do that. But people do that. And if you cross the line, if you grab Doug Ford by the scruff of his neck and you threaten to punch him, or you do punch him in the face, you're going to get charged, right? Okay, fair enough. And if you cross a line online, if you say, I'm going to hurt you, you might get visited by people, right? Is threatening to hurt somebody a crime? If it's a crime, then put it up to the criminal code. And if it stands up in court, then fine. I think that's what's being said here. So we have it already to deal with bad behavior. We don't need a new law to deal with online behavior, because we have this baseline law that deals with this behavior. Now, I mean, I'm not going to be a happy person if Mr. Poilievre goes, oh yeah, online harms bill can stay, blah, 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 because then it would just be a juiced up version. It would be a competing legal system. The online harms bill is not constitutional. It can't stand. It can't stand. If it does stand, it's the end of Canada. It's the end of Canada. Like, we're new Iran. Like, it's ridiculous, but it's true. Raw alerts. Apparently, Elon Musk wants to destroy Twitter. Elon Musk has just confirmed, according to Raw Alerts, that he will be removing the display of likes and retweets on retweet counts on posts. So no more number of retweets, no more number of likes. You just get comments. Do you think Elon Musk should remove the likes and repost counts from users' posts and only show view counts? And yes, this is a good idea, got 22%. No, this is a horrible idea, got 77% with almost 40,000 votes. So it's a horrible idea. It will wreck Twitter. But I mean, at this point in time, they're trying to destroy all of the social media has been destroyed. It was what once was great, like 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and even into 11 was fine. And then the Mitt Romney presidency happened, and then 2014 happened, and Trump happened. And by the time Trump was coming down the escalator, our politics had been completely reformed into new blue, or not new blue. What's the Blue Dot? There was a Democrat thing that basically took over Reddit politics, and they banned anybody who discussed anything outside of what they wanted to discuss, and that led to the creation of the Donald and so on and so forth. Anyway, let's talk and censorship. The whole point to divide and conquer is to make sure that people who are like-minded can't coalesce in a common area and realize how numerous they are. That's what's the point. That's the point. And on Reddit was so easy. And one of the reasons they saw their danger there was the call banking for Ron Paul in 2012. Because I mean, I think they damn near unseated the Republican Mitt Romney. I think they got close. Really. Okay. David Mulrooney is sharing this about the Canadian Armed Forces, specifically the Air Force. CAF crisis by the numbers. The Air Force is currently in the worst shape of all the CAF forces, the Canadian Armed Forces, with 55% of the fighters, maritime, aviation, search and rescue, tactical aviators, trainers, and transports considered unserviceable. That's not 55% are available for use. 45% are available for use at best, if you're lucky. And otherwise, nope, sorry about your luck. And again, like I said at the top of the show, that's only if we can afford the gas, because it doesn't seem like we're really interested in putting any gas in our equipment, or running our equipment, or doing anything that has anything to do with being like an effective military at all, period. So yeah, pretty incredible. Here's Toronto Sun reporting. This is from March 6, 2024. So this is new. Royal Canadian Navy's new Arctic ships have a severe flooding problem. According to the sailors, the ships have only a 1-year warranty, which means the taxpayer is footing the bill for most of the repairs. A 1-year warranty? Like, you couldn't get like your bed has like a 10-year warranty. It's prorated 10-year warranty, whatever, which isn't good. Prorated warranties are bad. But your bed has a warranty. I bet your iPhone has a better warranty than the $1 billion ship. How much did these ships cost? I don't know if it was $1 billion. Maybe the contract's $1 billion. 1-year warranty on what? They have a flooding problem? Do we have sub pumps? Like, How do we get this water out of here? I don't know. There wasn't enough pumps installed. This is bad. It seems bad to me. So our military is in a complete mess. And Canadian Moose is highlighting, while True North is interviewing Bill Blair, and True North says the defense minister, Bill Blair, was questioned regarding the recent announcement to cut $79 million from the Canadian Armed Forces. How are we going to deal with these flooding ships? We're on the hook for that now, $79 million cut. And Bill Blair talks about how, cutting money from the military is just fine. Here we go.
So last week's budget estimates for 2024-25 show $79 million is being reallocated out of ready forces. How do you square that with the promise for no cuts to the frontline needs?
Well, in 2017, through our strong, secured, and engaged defense policy, we committed to significantly increasing, almost doubling, actually it will in fact double, the defense budget between 2017 and 2026. So we are on a very positive upward trajectory of spending in defense. But we're spending Canadian taxpayers' dollars. And as in any bureaucracy, I think it's important that we look for the most efficient way to actually deliver the results that Canadians need and deliver for the Canadian Armed Forces. And so I've asked the Canadian Armed Forces and Department of National Defence to look at some of our expenditures for things like consultants, things like executive travel, or even professional services. And I want to be clear, some of those professional services, particularly around the maintenance of our fleet, are absolutely essential to the good order of the Canadian Armed Forces. But there are some, I think it's incumbent upon every government, every bureaucracy, to look for the most efficient ways in order to spend those valuable dollars to get the most public value for the Canadian Armed Forces and for Canada. And so we have been very carefully looking at our spending, but in fact our defense spending is increasing and will continue to decrease. And notwithstanding the plan
is increasing and will continue to decrease
that we put forward in 2017, we've also clearly indicated that we must do more. And so I have every expectation that with our defense policy update, we'll be able to bring future investments into the Canadian Armed Forces. We have a lot of work to do, and we've got the best people to tell us what.
So we're cutting $79 million, but in the future, we're going to definitely invest in the Canadian Armed Forces. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Lion Advocacy is talking about vaccines in the Canadian Armed Forces, and this is how they ousted all of the leaders of the Canadian Armed Forces who wouldn't go along with the vaccine mandates. What they did is the leadership was allowed to take fake vaccines and then use those vaccines, those fake vaccine papers, to promote it to the soldiers. Here's Lion Advocacy reporting this. Holy moly, there was actually a formal, semi-formal, take it or fake it scheme in the CAF for the COVID-19 jabs. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, the CAF was creating the illusion of mass vaccination to show leadership, even if it meant fake papers. The CAF does not fall under the authority of GC policy on COVID-19 vaccinations for the core public administration, including the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. For this reason, the CDS directive on CAF COVID-19 and this directive have been issued to ensure that CAF continues to demonstrate leadership to other GC departments and to call Canadians and to all Canadians and to continue to protect the defense team. And it goes deeper than this. This story goes deeper than this, but I want to talk about. Well, Amanda says it was a leadership mission, my friend, and Lion Advocacy responds: discreetly getting a fake jab certificate to financially survive is one thing. Using that fake passport to promote the jab and induce others to get a real vaccine is beyond the pale. And here is how a whole long list of commanders in our military were removed through bogus accusations of sexual assault. This is from Vance to Air. Here we go. This is a crazy story, but this is how they did this. This is how they got the mandates in. Here we go.
I have no doubt in my mind that this came from the Prime Minister's office. Part of the evidence or the support to that belief is that we seem to have a real trend where General Vance was Chief of Defence Staff when vaccines first emerged. He didn't bring in a mandate, and as you recall, he was removed under the cloud of a sexual misconduct allegation. Admiral MacDonald then took his place. Within a few weeks, he was under a cloud of suspicion for sexual misconduct. General Fortin was in charge of vaccine rollout in Canada. I suspect that he also said you couldn't bring out a mandate, which through the sworn testimony from the Peckford hearings, the Prime Minister's office was clear that this was coming from the Prime Minister, who was angry at being heckled and demanded that a mandate be brought in. So then we get General Fortin accused of sexual misconduct. We then have General Eyre come in as acting CDS at the time. He is given a briefing note from General Cadieux that you can't do this, basically. And General Cadieux is then accused of sexual misconduct. And then he brings in the vaccine mandate. He goes from being acting Chief of Defence Staff to full Chief of Defence Staff, and gets a promotion that I see as a reward for being obedient to higher powers.
Very plausible. Absolutely 100% plausible. So how do you get a vaccine mandate into the military? You fire everybody who refuses. Cool. How do you fire everybody who refuses? You accuse them of sexual assault. And in a military situation, I mean, that's pretty easy. It's almost up on a silver platter. You know what I mean? I've heard stories. Here is just a Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful